Năm 2004, trung tâm tiếp nhận một bé là bé Nguyễn Lê Hùng bị bỏ rơi ở bệnh viện. Được một thời gian thì trung tâm tìm gia đình thay thế để bé có một mái ấm gia đình hạnh phúc.
Him at the orphanage.
When he has this big tumor over his face, a vascular tumor, means it's a blood tumor.
The type of tumor that he had, there's a very high risk of bleeding to death. So most of the doctors we visited said, we are not doing that surgery on him, ever. My name is Hope Tor. I'm from San Diego, California. I am an epidemiologist. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a type of scientist that deals in epidemics. And I've been married to my husband, John, for 27 years. He's a pastor. We have 6 children, ranging in age from 23 to 16. And 2 of those children are adopted. One son, Josiah, is adopted from Ethiopia. And our son, Samuel, is adopted from Vietnam. Early 90s. I was living just shy of a year in the Philippines. While I was there, I saw many people who were so sick, and especially children who have problems that are pretty correctable, that if they just had access to a surgery or therapy or something like that. So that was the early 90s. I came back to the US and I got married and I had my own children. And I started talking to my husband about the prospect of adopting children.
You see, when we first got married, I didn't have adoption on my mind. It just wasn't really a thought. I wasn't opposed to it. I just never thought about it. But this was always in Hope's heart. And so over the years, Hope moved my heart to adopt.
Năm 2004, bên trung tâm tiếp nhận một bé là bé Nguyễn Lê Hùng bị bỏ rơi ở bệnh viện. Và tiếp nhận thì bé có một cái bú máu ở mặt phải. Được một thời gian thì 2005 trung tâm đã làm hồ sơ tìm gia đình thay thế để bé có một mái ấm gia đình hạnh phúc, chứ không phải là mình thiếu thốn về tình cảm. Nên cái điều mà tìm gia đình thay thế cho mấy đứa trẻ là rất là được tán thành nhiều lắm.
After some time, my husband and I agreed this is something we wanted to do. I went online and I checked out the first website and it said no adoptions between the US and Vietnam. I went to the second website, no adoptions between the US and Vietnam. And the third one said no adoptions between the US and Vietnam. All adoptions between the US and Vietnam were closed because there had been black market baby selling. And so they had to just stop the whole thing until they could review the process and see where the problems were. But there was a little asterisk and it said, however, if you're open to adopting a very special needs child, call this number. So I called the number and she said, can I send you a photo because it's kind of shocking and you need to realize how bad the situation is. And I said, absolutely. So she sent me an email with his photo attached, and I opened the email and it shocked me. I mean, the photo, I was not prepared for what I saw, you know. But at the same time, my husband and I kind of looked at each other and said, how can we not help this child? We've got to help this child.
Here we go. Hey, Hope! We made it! Stop!
August of 2005, we went and visited him at the orphanage and just fell in love the minute we saw him. He had been born very premature. His twin, he had a twin, his twin died.
He had pneumonia 4 times. He almost died multiple times. And he had the tumor on one side of his face, and you couldn't see it, in one eye. But he would look at you with one eye and have a big crooked smile. For him to look in my eyes and to touch my face and
Jesus loves a little Samuel, all the Samuel of the world, little brown baby from Vietnam. Jesus loves the little Samuel of the world.
And he was in pretty poor condition. It's just he needed intensive, individualized care that you're not going to get in an orphanage with hundreds of babies. And the doctor said he would not have lived much longer that way. And we knew that it was really important to get the adoption process to really, really finish so that we could get him back to the U.S. One day we took him to the grocery store when we first brought him back to the U.S. And my husband had Samuel in a front carrier facing out. And they were like, oh my God, what is wrong with that kid? Why on earth would you ever get a baby like that? And I just went off on them and said, excuse me, that is my son, and the reason you want a child like that is to help them. The therapist said, we don't see cases this bad in the United States. He may never talk, he may never go to a regular school, he may never be able to live by himself or be blind forever.
that was a very real possibility that he would go through life with that tumor on his face, at least until they said he was like five years old. Because by the time he was 5 years old, he would have been teased a lot. Children probably would have ran away from him, and we didn't want that to happen. So
the doctor said some of the damage cognitively to his brain was permanent. The type of tumor that he had, there's a very high risk of bleeding to death. So most of the doctors we visited said, we are not doing that surgery, ever. I'll be honest, there were nights I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and thought, what are we doing? You know, is this going to work? Is this going to help this child at all? I mean, because it's entirely possible that we would bring him back to the U.S. and there would be no improvement.
So luckily, we found a surgeon who is a world-class plastic surgeon, and she said that she would do it. And so that was a real blessing.
Who said, yes, I've been trained to do this kind of surgery. Not many people in the world will do it, but I'm going to do it.
The tumor on his face, it is a vascular tumor, in other words, blood vessels. So a lot of people are really afraid to cut into him, thinking that the child will bleed to death. I think there had been a little bit of bleeding. So blood losses can be a concern. With him being a baby, he was over a year old and he looked like he was 6 months old. So he was very small. That's, more challenging, risky.
Watching them wheel Sam into the operating room, and we had to wait. And it's a very risky, surgery. And not knowing what was going on is, nerve-wracking.
And how I would stage, take a little bit at a time, because basically what happens is you can remove a section and then you allow the tissues to stretch, allow him to grow, and then you can go back. And I probably removed 60%, I think, the first time I operated on him.
And so we had to do that 7 times, as he kept growing. I remember right there, maybe a couple of hours, but then when he came out, and she said everything went great, it was wonderful.
Just been many years of little by little taking more and more of the tumor off, and he has so surpassed our expectations. I had 2 of his doctors say, I never believed in miracles until I met your son, Sam. Us, frankly, being kind of scared about his future to now being really excited about his future.
Samuel, what's today?
Thursday,
And what's special about today?
my birthday.
Awesome. And then we might go to the beach.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
All the way through elementary school, middle school, and then freshman in high school is when everybody loves Sam. He was voted the most popular kid in the sophomore class. He's going to college. He's in culinary school. He was just different. He is what they would call high functioning autism. You know, I don't think he will ever be normal, but at this point, we don't want him to be like everybody else because he is so wonderful.
Sam was graduating from high school, so we thought a great graduation gift and turning 18 gift would be a trip to Vietnam. You know, he left Vietnam sick. We took him and did the best we could to try to get him to a place where he can come back now and have a relationship with his family.
This has always been something that we wanted to do. And my wife, she's like, this is not something that's that we can wait for. So she just decided, he's 18 years old now. He's graduated from high school. It's time.
His mom's already crying.
Aw.
You ready?
You gonna meet your mom for the first time, Sam?
Yeah. Say hi.
Hello.
And so at first I was like, I thought, this is a joke. I was very guarded. I didn't believe it. I'm like, really? And I had left out some very specific information that only the parents would know. And that was that he was a twin.